Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to RCI Mondays, and it's time for another single car championship, and this time with the Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2. Tonight we are bringing you round one from a very hot and sunny Imola. I'm your lead commentator for tonight, John Dalton, and alongside me is Jesse Lee with Ryan Gill behind the cameras, and of course, as always, the live stewards next door. Welcome everyone.
Well, hello to yourself, Mr. Dalton. Hello, everyone at home. It's a brand new year. It's a brand new championship. Of course, a single make series on Monday. Name a better combination. What could be better than Super Trofeo here at Imola, one of the premier racing circuits, not only in Italy, but in the world. John, we're going to see something that we haven't seen on RCI TV in quite some time, and that's Super Trofeo cars by themselves on a premier racing circuit.
Yeah, certainly so, Jesse. The Lamborghini factory, of course, just over 45 minutes away from Imola, so very, very local indeed for the manufacturer. And something else we've not seen in a while is not the usual 1 hour race, but we do have a 50-minute sprint tonight with a ban on pit lane refueling, meaning drivers, of course, will have to make sure they put enough in the tank to begin with or manage their fuel usage over the race. Obviously, anyone forced to come in will be at a significant disadvantage over the field, so fingers crossed that we do get a clean start here. Notoriously very tricky Imola, the pinch point, the first chicane makes it very, very difficult indeed to go more than 2 wide. We see 3 wide sometimes, but it normally ends in tears. Some great names up and down the field as well, Jesse, as we see on the left-hand side.
Yeah, of course, going out for qualifying, the first qualifying session of the season. It's going to be very important to make a big impression here today and not lose points. There's so many cars out there. This will likely be the largest field they see this season, and it always is like that at the beginning of a brand new season. Well, 15 minutes of qualifying, just gone past afternoon, midday, I should say here. Nothing to complain about the weather. 32 degrees C on the track, 24 ambient. The track is fast. That means that it's only going to improve, so these will not be the most representative times we see here early.
Yeah, the track is only going to get faster, like you say, Jesse, as Chris Downing for the Volpus SimSport Got Milk team first in the queue today as we ride on board the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Evo 2 coming down the start-finish straight of Imola. 18 turns in total. You're going to want a straight line as much as you can towards the first chicane to get the shortest run that you can into the Variante Tamburello. Turns 2, 3, and 4. Be very careful not to take too much curb. Can really unsettle the car, and you want to try and maximize your exit as much as you can through turn 4 up until the Variante Villeneuve chicane of 5 and 6. Again, very tricky curves on the inside, anti-cut speed humps, making it very difficult if you do smash them too hard. Gravel trap on the outside can slow you down for your run into turn 7 of Tosa, where of course makes for great passing. Drivers take 2 very different lines through turn 7. Some drivers treat it as a double apexer. Some drivers, of course, take it as a very short run, hugging the inside curve all the way. Now up the hill through turn 8, slight kink into 9 of Piratella. Very easy to catch track limits on the exit, but Chris Downing doing an excellent job keeping all 4 wheels the right side of the curve. Now downhill now into Acqua Minerale, turns 11, 12 and 13. Heading up the hill, be very careful to get a clean exit out of here because it can hamper your progress down into the Variante Alta of turns 14 and 15. Again, very tricky corners, big curves on the inside, got to hit them exactly right and be very careful again of track limits on the exit. We've seen time and time again drivers get caught out 50 minutes for the race. Very easy to pick up 3 track cut penalties if you're pushing hard. Now down the hill, turn 16, heavy braking into Rivazza, turn 17 and of course turn 18 towards the end. Turn 19, of course, the slight kink before the start finish line. Want to again maximize your run as much as you can. Going to see maybe a lot of slipstreaming down the start finish straight. Very long drag back to turn 1. Chris Downing across the line to set a provisional time of 1:43.4.
Well, that's a very nice opening lap. I think that will take some beating. Several drivers taking a crack at it, and then Verstappen going immediately to the top, a 43.254, just about 2/10 quicker than Downing. Andy Boardman slots in between the two of them, taking the opposite pole position there, just a little over a tenth off of Verstappen's time. Now keep in mind that was probably ran on fast to optimum, so there is a little bit of pace, especially I would assume in the first sector alone. But I think while we have the time here in qualifying, as Jose Jimenez actually goes quickest of all in the 122, that's a 43.242, 3/1000ths of a second difference between him and Verstappen for pole position. And while they continue to circulate, John, I think it's important to talk about these cars. You don't see these cars a lot in competition. Of course, you're going to get a full season of them here. What are some of the characteristics of these cars? I know they're wicked fast in a straight line, but what else do you know about them?
Yeah, they're certainly quite a quick car, Jesse. Indeed, we saw when we did our kind of Challengers Championship with the Evo, the Huracan, and the Porsche Cup car that was all released at the same time into ATCs. We see a big moment ahead there for Pedro Marquez over the curbs, just running way too wide there. But 5.2 litre V10, of course, powers these cars up to 611 brake horsepower with 570 Newton meters of torque, paired, of course, with a sequential 6-speed X-Track gearbox. Doesn't make this car a slouch by any means, and like I say, we saw in our Challengers championship that this car corners very well. I believe the Porsche Cup car was quicker in a straight line, but not as quick, of course, as the Ferrari Challenge car was. That was something immense. Of course, a lot of downforce on these as well. Massive rear wing, big revised front aero lip from the previous Super Trofeo car of the previous revision. And Ryan Gills also told us tonight before we come on air that this was the basis for the new GT3 Huracan Evo 2 that is, of course, coming next year to the SRO season.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. It's such a beautiful car. It's got that nice hood scoop. You got some of the GT2 elements in there as well. And you can see the lineage, can't you? The progression of these fantastic automobiles continue to iterate on that evolution. And of course, the rubbing my hands together, I can't wait for that new GT3 Huracan Evo to come out. But for right now, all about the Super Trofeo today. Everyone trying to get as good of a starting spot as they possibly can do. They've got 8.5 minutes left to get it done. More than enough time to run some laps. You got an optimum track now. Everybody playing in the same sandbox. Of course, it's coming down to how good that setup is because, of course, John, you can set these cars up quite a bit.
Yeah, certainly a lot of adaptations for the drivers to obviously get their head around, such as, like a typical GT3 car in a sense. It's not so limited, such as the M2 TCX car, where you can just about set a few suspension adjustments and that's about it. Full range of adjustments for these guys, so any kind of advantage you can get, upon your opponent, whether that be trimming out some of the rear wing, running your brake ducts that a little bit narrower to get a little bit faster down the straight, whether you set your car up, for a short period of time, obviously 50 minutes, 5-0 for the race tonight, not the traditional hour, so tyre wear isn't really going to be a worry, although quite hot here at Imola with 32 degrees C on the track, so you're going to have some kind of tyre management element. Although, are you going to set your car up to be stronger in the start of the stint, or will you later go for the kind of late game and try and manage those tyres and nurse those tyres and see if your opponents burn theirs up in the first 20 to 30 minutes trying to eke out a gap, and then whether you can come back in that final segment of the race. We did see it a few times in the Ginetta Cup in the hotter circuits, a few of the drivers going a little bit too hard on their tyres. Torzidlo springs to mind for one of the events, I believe Suzuka. He went out like a stabbed rat, and then towards the end of the race everybody started catching him again as Pedro Marquez retires the car to the pit lane for a fresh set of Pirelli rubber. Chris Downing still on a run here. Don't believe he's come back to the pits, although his time is looking quite good on the first couple of sectors. A 1:43.040 was his best lap, obviously a 1:42.717 set by our very own RCI esports driver Christopher Straper, who had a run in the Porsche Cup car over the weekend. Not such a great result for the RCI boys, but they will come back fighting stronger than ever now. Chris Downing into the last turn 17 and 18 of Ravazza. Car ahead, not going to affect him, of course. Not much to gain to clear Nico Kumpu, and a little bit of a gain to get to the front runners. Top three separated by less than 0.105 of a second. Chris Downing to the line. He does improve, takes a P4, moving himself up the order ever so slightly. But Jesse Lee, top 18, nearly top 19, separated by less than a second. This is going to be a super competitive field.
Well, it's kind of what you expect in a race like this, isn't it? You got the similar car, and while they all are set up a little bit differently, surely for creature comfort and the like, of course, on top of that, it is still the same car, so you expect it to be close. It's probably going to get even closer as Frout does go P5 with that lap, 42.930. But we have seen some movement inside the top few positions. Rachanov went P3, and then Romanek came in and set the quickest lap. Then Verstappen came in and set the quickest lap. I think it was a 42.717, and now we have Rachanov up at the top again on the provisional pole position. Verstappen down to second place, incredibly close between all of the cars up at the front of this field. And keep in mind too, if you can improve by just a tenth, that can take you from 17th to almost inside the top 10.
Certainly a super competitive field here tonight, Jesse. 31 drivers made it into split one after pre-qualifying was, of course, drawn last night. Some very regular names, of course, up and down the board for Monday. We have Christopher Straper, of course, Asia Masters Championship. Champion. RPMS regulars Richard Phillips and Matt Stevens. Vensy Rachanov, British Masters champion. Tom Shipston, silver champion from British Masters. And of course, a lot of other RCI regulars up and down the board. 31 drivers. Tim Ireland, our very own league admin, has been very generous with the points, meaning the top 30 will score some kind of points, which of course, even if you think you're way out of the race by turn one, even if you're in that top 30 zone, you're still going to score something. And of course, points can mean everything come to the end of the race. You'd rather take some early on than some later on, where, you know, we saw it last time out of Genetic Cup, not a lot separated the top 5.
Yeah, I'd rather have some in the bank than have to find some late in a series. It doesn't take the pressure off having a little bit of a lead or having points early, but you feel better. I can assure you that there's no added pressure to have to make some up. And hey, 30 cars get points. I could get points, I think, in a race like this. Is very generous spread. So top 30 getting points. And of course, everybody at the top of that board at the end of 50 minutes today, we're going to get the lion's share. And I talked very briefly about how important that possibly could be. And it's everything for me, really, John. I'm interested to know what your thoughts are. But early on in a championship, my mind is you want to get every point you possibly can. You don't want to leave anything to chance, anything on the table. And that's always important. You never want to leave that round one knowing that you only got a handful of points when you could have had a fistful.
Yeah, definitely so, Jesse, on that one. I mean, you know, at the start of the season, although you're kind of pressured into a new car, you know, some of these guys may not be used to driving the kind of mid-engine platform like the Lamborghini. They may have never even touched the Super Trofeo until, you know, their pre-qualifying came about. But just to add to that pressure, you know, scoring some kind of points, like you say at the beginning, is of course better than scoring no points. And the last thing you want to do, you know, is get towards the end of the season, think, I could have had a shot at the championship here, put yourself under even more pressure that you're going to have to score even more points when there's not so many left on the table. It just takes that kind of worry away of not knowing, you know, turn one may not go the way it goes in your head, turn, you know, two may not go the way you think it's going to go. And of course, any point literally matters. Like Janessa Masters, you know, was separated by not a lot of points in the end across all of the rounds that we ran there, and many other RCI championships have been very, very similar. Looking around at the EWC calendar for my notes tonight, that's separated by, I believe, about 8 or 9 points across 4 classes, which is absolutely crazy. Everybody's going to be eking for those extra points, whether it be on a fastest lap or a pole position. But Jordan Daly, lots of curb there, very squirrely coming out of the last chicane. A little bit of a weave just to kind of feel the car back under himself again. 1 minute 40 on the clock. He does, of course, have another stab at a lap.
Sure does. Rachanov still holding on to that pole position of 42.620. That's just about 1/10 quicker than this man, Christoph Strepp, in the Squadra Corsa liveried number 2 car. But I wonder, will this lap be good enough to go back to pole? And it is in a big way. Verstappen with a 42.352. That's the biggest improvement we've seen at the front all session long. And with 1 minute and change left to go. That might be the final dagger, but we'll see what Rachanov and Romanuk has to say. And Frau has just gone P2. Now Jimenez, Jose Jimenez has gone into P2. He's a little over a 10th off, but even so, huge improvements late.
This is what I love about these one-spec races, Jesse. Just as you think the board has kind of been set, everything then changes in the blink of an eye. We've had a good shuffle around in the top 5, and our very own RCI Kevin Boss in the YouTube chat tonight telling us that he had some trouble getting these tyres up to temperature when he drove this car. Took him about 5 laps to get him in the window, and of course, with 15 minutes on the qualifying, you're going to kind of be in that magic window now. So if you time
I've done the maths, John, and I think Mr. Boss is right.
Yeah, you're probably going to be at the fastest that they've ever been. Of course, track has gone to optimum since the beginning of the session, where it began as a fast state. Of course, tyres are going to be up to temperature, up to pressure. If you've managed to balance that fuel load with just enough to get you through the last kind of 4 or 5 minutes, then you know, it's going to be plain sailing for you. Hopefully easy improvements as Luke Crofts comes down into the last section, turns 17-18, keeping it very clean indeed. Be careful of the gravel on the outside, keeps it nice and tidy over the curb, begins a run to the line, currently resides in P21 for the RKM car, and it goes down to P22. Nope. Late line on Imola, I always forget, goes up into P15, and Adam Romaniuk now P3 in the number 29 Porcelain racing car does have another stab at it. And looking at the delta through sector 1, Jesse, it's looking very good indeed, but still quite a long lap left to go.
It sure is. We'll see what happens here at the end of this lap. Everybody vying for the top spots. A couple of drivers have a better than good shout at making that a reality. And we'll see just where it comes down. You got to be super precise getting up on the curbs. These cars can take quite a bit of curb, but you don't want to go too far that you either invalidate or, of course, run afoul of the outer track limits. This is a bad spot for that to happen right here, but no such drama on this particular lap. 2 or 3 turns left to go. It's looked good so far. Question is, will it be good enough?
Yeah, big time loss through Aqua Minerale. Now he's only got 2 corners to go. Don't know if Adam Romania can make any time at all now on that delta. It was looking so good in sector 1, but curse of the commentator, he was 0.4 up on the delta when I looked over at our live timing screen, which would, of course, smashed him way ahead of Christopher Straper, but a massive mistake in Aqua Minerale, unfortunately, keeps him in P3. So there goes your qualifying. Christopher Straper takes the pole from Jose Jimenez, Adam Romaniuk in P3, Frau P4, Rachanov P5, Chris Downing P6, Benjamin Schumann P7, Jordan Daly P8, Nico Kumpu P9, and Carlos I can never pronounce Carlos' surname, Jesse.
Calatia.
That's the one. In P10, rounds out your top 10 here in the Super Trofeo Cup.
Well, qualifying was a very fast and furious affair, and here are those results outside the top 10. It doesn't get any further away, but you see Marquez in 12th place. He had the quickest of all first sector, and nobody has more than one sector. Of course, Verstappen was quickest in the second sector, and it's Romanik is quickest in the third sector, and they're all separated by a quarter of a second. You got to go all the way down to what is that 15th place Joe Dauber before we get outside that 1 second bracket. What does that mean realistically in a race like this? One mistake, one dip of a tire off, one curb that you hit wrong, that loses you a second. That's how close it is.
Yeah, we saw it in Ginetta Cup, didn't we, Jesse, where, you know, drivers would be running in what we call kind of like pack style almost, where you'd have a small break of them, you know, separate themselves from the main field, and then everybody else would kind of find their own almost dance partners in a way, where you'd have 3 or 4 cars all bunched together. One of them would make a mistake or be elbowed out the way, and before you know it, everybody else is coming through on you. So you have to be very, very careful not to kind of miss out on, you know, like you say, Jesse, one apex, one curb, you know, anything like that can really, really detrimentally affect your race. And even down to P28, Jesse, only 2.1 seconds separates P28 to P1. I mean, if me and you said we were going to meet at McDonald's and we, turn up 2 seconds apart, we practically arrive at the same time, near enough. But in racing, of course, means completely something different. 2 seconds is obviously a massive little margin there. So, anything can happen here tonight. And I'm really excited to see how these guys get to grips, of course, with the car. Some of them maybe not driving the car as much as others. Some people maybe know how this is going to handle over a longer stint than a shorter stint. But it will come down to who can nail in those laps time and time again. And we always say, Jesse, ACC is a race of consistency.
It really is. You got to be perfect, especially if you're going to compete in a pro field like this. And make no mistake, these are pros. You're going to have to be just about perfect, immaculate for 50 minutes, but you're also going to be challenged by everybody else because we are at Imola. There are some quite long straights that aren't technically straight for reasons, of course, but all that's going to do is help you draft up. These cars tend to draft pretty all right as well. So even if you are a tenth or so quicker, that's not going to matter over the course of a lap because of the straights, because of the draft. You're all still going to be neck and neck. It should be a good race. Let's hope we avoid the big one into turns 2 and 3. How many times have we seen it go wrong there? Of course, the dog leg here on the front straight, I think technically counts as turn 1. So the first official turn is turn 2 and 3. That S section, always dangerous. Hopefully tonight, though, everybody is able to keep their head on a swivel, and we don't have that issue.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, quite a lot of dogleg corners, as you say. Turn 1, certainly the first one. Then you've got turn 8 at the top of the hill. That's technically a turn. And turn 16 before you get to Rivazza of 17 and 18. And you've got turn 19 just before the start line. So a lot of kind of kinks, not many, major kinks as such, but it will of course set you up for some good action if you can get alongside your rivals. Like you say, Jesse, slipstreaming is going to be one of those things that does hopefully determine some of these fights. Of course, no pit stop here tonight. We have a ban on pit lane refueling and only 50 minutes of race timer. So everybody's going to have to make up as much as they can. You're not going to have that extra 10 minutes at the end where you think, I'm going to make some moves towards the end. It's going to be minus those 10 minutes and get your foot down and see what you can do in the opening stages. And like you say, Jesse, fingers crossed for the big one. Isn't going to happen this time out, although a very pinchy point down into turns 2, 3 and 4. We do see it a few times now and again where we do get the famous big one. Calendar breakdown for the Super Trofeo Cup, of course, finds the second round also happening on home soil in Italy at Monza. Again, going back to your slipstream point, going to be an interesting round there. Round 3 then flies us stateside for Indianapolis before crossing back over the Atlantic Ocean towards Brands Hatch for round 4. I think that's going to be a very interesting one as well. Old school circuit, modern car. Going to see how these guys can get the hustled around there. And finally, round 5 takes us back to Europe for the finale at Spa. This man's home circuit, Christophe Verstappen, the Belgium driver, of course, RCI driver for us in our esports leg, does see a clear road ahead of him down into turn 1, essentially, where that board is on the left, where the curb begins, as the drivers now begin their formation laps. Tricky to get up to temperature, according to Kevin Boss, so hopefully drivers can generate enough heat in the brakes and in the tyres to get themselves safely into turn 1, or 2, should we say, Jesse? And the question that we always ask each other every time before a race starts, who is your money on tonight?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Luckily, I assumed I was going to get asked that at some point. I hate to bet against Chris in the number 2 car, but I'll have to give it to Jimenez. I think Jimenez is going to outlast everyone here today, and I'm going to go with Jimenez in P2. I just think over the course of a 50-minute race, they're going to be about perfect.
Yeah, Jimenez was pretty good at hustling the Ginetta through qualifying and the race stages as well. So definitely a driver to keep your eye on. I've not seen Adam Romaniuk race much on my Monday slot, so I'm going to be keeping my eye on him as well. Rachinov, I know, can be a race winner from the British Masters Championship. And Jordan Daly down in P8 with Nico Kumpu in 9, Andy Boardman in 10th. So, I mean, there's a lot of drivers, kind of grouped together there. That
You're not getting out of this, John. Pick one.
I don't want to pick one. I want to pick them all, like Pokemon.
That's absolutely insane. You made me pick one. You know what?
There's too many, Jesse Lee. There's too many
John
good
Dalton
drivers
is picking
in
the
split
entire
one.
top 10. It's his show. It's his rules.
Everyone's a winner on Monday, Jesse Lee. In some way or another, everyone gets a prize.
Oh my goodness! I just want you to know you have upset our race broadcaster, Mr. Ryan Gill, in place of Ryan Malson this particular season. We traded one Ryan for another, just as good in my book, and he is very displeased with Mr. Dalton at this time. Of course, just want to say hello to everybody in chat. Welcome into a brand new season, a brand new year here on RCI TV. We got a lot of stuff to talk with you about at some point in the future. A bunch of different races, many different sims, and Les Stevenson going a little bit sideways right there in Aqua Minerale, trying to exit there, warming up the tires. But we appreciate you guys being with us here on RCI TV. We see some of you in chat talking about your favorite teams. XBD, a favorite early on. Carlos Calabria could do some damage here today. Who knows? We'll see how that all turns out. And just thanks for being with us. Thanks for getting us to 4,200 subscribers on YouTube last year. Let's keep that going. One final thing before we kick this race off, of course, nobody really knows what their fuel is going to be. It's a weird length of race. It's 50 minutes. It has a different fuel flow to cars they're probably used to. I hope everyone got it right. With that said, John Dalton, take us away.
Yeah, sadly so, Jesse. The fuel is on my mind tonight as well. Hopefully all the drivers have calculated that extra one lap for the formation lap, and that we're going to see all of the cars get towards the end. And of course, welcome to everybody in the chat who is stopping by tonight. Your support is of course much appreciated as we roll towards the gantry for the first green flag of 2023. Christoph Verstraper on the lights, still red, long hold here at Imola tonight. Still holding. Come on, let's drop the green flag here at Imola. Away we go. Christoph Verstraper makes a great start. Jose Jimenez darting in behind Adam Romagna towards the outside with Carlos Frau, again the XPD driver on the outside line, too wide into turn 2. Christoph Verstraper breaks away. We jump to the helicam now. Everybody in the top 8 or 9 looks to have got through safely. Jesse Lee, not seeing any cars stopped on the circuit maps. I think we may have got this one clean as we head up towards the Villeneuve chicane now. Still too wide. Everybody trying to find their feet a little bit, and contact. Chris Downing on Carlos Frau manages to save it. Downing losing a bucket load of position. So Jesse, as we saw Jordan Daly there look towards the outside as well. Still too wide down into the hairpin. Now the drag begins up the hill. What a clean-ish start that was, other than one piece of contact, I think.
Yeah, one contact down in Villeneuve. I think that was pretty much it, and everybody else was able to scramble away from that. That was absolutely brilliant. Now watch out for Aqua Minerale here the first time through, because it could be a bit hair-raising here. Everybody's still trying to scrap and get as much as they possibly can. Here is the 29. Now they're in third place, but they're in, I dare not call that a distant third, because they're still very much in touch with the leaders, but the first two have absolutely scampered away here at this point, and an absolute log jam here from about 12th place on back. One car gets rear-ended there as they enter the chicane. One car off into the back, another one off wide. That's all self-preservation. No big issue there. They'll get back onto the track and continue on without further incident. That was a very nice start from 30 cars on a brand new year. Well done.
Yeah, 28 cars all through Imola very safely, other than the kind of bump we saw coming out of the Villeneuve chicane, and of course towards the end of the lap at the top of the hill. But you know, quite a feat, I would say, Jesse, trying to hustle all these cars through. We've seen, you know, time and time again, many big ones, especially through, you know, 2 and 3 drivers overcommitting, forgetting that they have the switchback towards turn 4 and ending up either on the grass, the gravel, the inside wall, the outside wall, anywhere. As we see a yellow flag now in the first chicane. Tom Shipston, I believe, has managed to escape whatever the drama was. 699 looks to have stopped, and possibly the 22. 699 back to the pits, and the 22, Richard Phillips, does continue on. Must have heard our comment about the about the top 30 scoring points potentially, which is always good. Carlos Frau now, the XBD Emerald racing car. We have a green one and we have a pinkish colour one under Jose Jimenez. So great to see custom liveries. Of course, you can sign up with your custom liveries on the RCI website, subject to approval. There are a few rules beforehand. Read them to say you don't flout them, and of course our team of admins will approve them. But it's great to see a colourful grid once again, Jesse, and I hope to see a couple more custom liveries in round 2 for anybody watching back.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, custom liveries are a thing that you can elect to have here, and some of them that are custom made, very nicely done, and a kaleidoscope of colors, I will say. The Lion car, the Temporal Name Motorsports car, they got the lion on the side of it for Benjamin Sherman. Well, going to need the heart of a lion tonight. He's in 5th place. He got passed by Rachanov on the initial start. Rachanov up a position into 4th, qualified 5th, of course. Sherman holding back the dam. Got Frau, Kumpu, and the like. Actually, no, I've been bamboozled. Sherman has gotten by Rachanov. Rachanov looking down the outside here, and Tamburello to make a move. Nothing doing there. Has to quickly block off Frau from behind. Andy Boardman might have had a little bit of contact in the background and is sent backwards by Nico Kumpu. I'm unsure about that. One car definitely looked sideways as they're still all over each other in the background.
Yeah, this is kind of what we said about the concertina effect, Jesse. You know, one car kind of has a little bit of a bad run side by side through a chicane, and before you know it, you're kind of up against the diffuser. You check up, the guy behind you maybe not paying as much attention, and of course doesn't check up, runs into the back of you, and you know, contact is made. Of course, stewards will be looking into every kind of contact log they have from tonight's opening race as we go. We of course have a full team of stewards tonight in the form of Andreas, Bart, Connor, Daniel, Jake, and Tom Watts in the steward's attic tonight. So hopefully making fair and judgmental decisions, looking at it from every angle, more angles of course than what we see here on the broadcast. They'll scour, you know, drivers' inputs, angles, etc., who did what to who, and then come up with a decision. We'll of course keep you updated of any decisions made during the broadcast, but Jose Jimenez looks very racy indeed on the back of Christoph Verstraper. Verstraper got a great run off the line, although Jimenez has really got his head down, tucked to that pink Lamborghini right into the back of the rear wing of Christoph. He's going to be having to watch his virtual mirror, because I didn't know this, but this car doesn't have a rear view mirror inside the cockpit, Jesse.
Yeah, there's no way to see out of the back. You're having to use the wing mirrors if you can. Joe Dahlberg's had a huge accident here. And was this a punt coming into the chicane? No, it wasn't. Was there a little bit of a tap exiting? I think it might have been. 2 cars have gone off, in fact, and those might have been teammates.
I was going to say the liveries look very, very similar. Was that a little bit of friendly fire we just witnessed?
I don't know, but one thing's for sure, Joe Dahlberg got the worst of that and continued to struggle to get those tires to hook back up. Will rejoin the race. There wouldn't have been a lot of damage done in that incident, but certainly did the damage on the timing and scoring board for sure. Jimenez has not given up his pursuit of Verstappen. He will not do so, and neither has this entire group. Schumann, not Sherman. Schumann has gotten back by Rachanov, that we saw. Rachanov has pulled a little bit of a gap to Frau, and Downing is smelling a little bit of blood in the water here.
Andy Boardman making all the use of the track there, Jesse, way over the line in order to try and maximise as much as he can from the back of Chris Downing, maybe suffering a little bit of aero wash. I'm not sure how susceptible these cars are, but again, wide coming out of Aqua Minerale, hopefully not picking up 2 track limits in less than 2 corners.
Just thinking.
It's not going to be that good for Andy Boardman, you know. 4 strikes technically, and you served a penalty, so you get 3 as a grace period, and then you get 1 more, and that's it. Your time is up. Please come on in for a penalty. So of course you pick up 2 in the space of 2 corners. That's not a lot of leeway to play with for the next 43 minutes.
Certainly is not. A couple of cars have gone off in Minerale there that time through. They were near the back, but they are absolutely at the back now. Unknown exactly what happened to those cars involved. Certainly contact of some variety as we go up into the top 15. This is Ashley Holland looking out of the front, looking at Les Stevenson in the 46, is going to pull out to the left. That is the best place to do it. Les does not argue the fact here. It might be side by side into Tamburello, and is nicely done by Holland there, getting the pass done.
Yeah, certainly very textbook move through to what is turns 2 and 3. It's very habit to say almost turns 1, when of course it isn't. Matthew Kingston-Lee, of course, sporting the yellow taxi livery, as I like to say in the background there. Very reminiscent of a New York cab. I don't think I've ever seen him race under any different colours for the past good year or so. So it's great to see drivers kind of sticking to a theme and running with it. Makes our life as broadcasters very easy indeed. And the lion on the side of the car, Jesse, I believe is after a British chocolate bar, if I'm right in saying.
Oh, all right. Well, it's a nice lion regardless. I'd eat that. If I saw that in the supermarket, I'd have that. Looks very nice. Ryan is asking me clarification on whether I like the lion or the chocolate bar. The lion on the chocolate bar is the selling point, just so we're clear.
You're not into buying lions, Jesse? That's a side hustle.
You'd have to have one big fence to keep that thing in, wouldn't you?
You really would.
Race continuing here, and a lot of drivers have found their sort of rhythm in and around each other. I think this big front straight is going to be the place where passes mostly get made. Here's a defensive move from Schumann down the outside. Is Rachinov trying to get this pass at least alongside to make it a real fair fight? Can't do it. That is covered off. Schumann did a really good job. Very deliberate car movement there, no weaving about, and that's Frau. Klee get a little bit closer. I got a little scared there. Rachinov back and forth, trying to find a lane, trying to put his car somewhere, filling up the mirrors. Off the track is Schumann there a little bit. Frau closing in again as we come into the Tosa hairpin.
Yeah, this is kind of what we keep saying, Jesse, where, you end up on the outside of turn, 2, kind of hampers your run through 3 and 4, and, of course, allows your opponent to get back up on you if they've gone defensive from shortening that corner off, but it, of course, does also allow the guy that's chasing you two, aka Carlos Frau in this scenario, to catch up even more. So this little train isn't going to be separated by a lot. And of course we see one little mistake can mean a position loss, but I don't think Rachinov is giving up on the back of Schumann. He wants that P4 back. We've seen Rachinov champion of British Masters, so definitely no stranger to having to fight for a title. Some super big names in that championship he ran in, and some super big names here tonight, but great drive so far from Benjamin Schumann in the 31.
Well, these drivers continuing to feel each other out. Neither one, based on my visual estimation, willing to make too big of a mistake. You saw Rachinov go left to right. A lot of times the reason you do that as the car following is you're just trying to force a mistake, because if you're in every mirror or you're weaving around, you're a distraction. You're not doing it to be dangerous. You're doing it to be a distraction, make them make a little bit of a mistake, just enough that you can get side by side and then see if you can make the pass. Not nearly far enough up alongside this time for Vince. He can't quite do it, and Schumann didn't even have to really do much there to defend that position. Just went down the inside for the sake of security. And of course, because none of them are battling, look at this. It's pretty much even between the three of them. They're all neck and neck, but spaced out pretty evenly. It will take a mistake or a heck of a tow down the front straight to make that pass possible.
Yeah, so Rachinov certainly looks a lot more confident kind of in the corners over Benjamin Schumann, although Schumann seems to get better drive out of the corners, so possibly a little bit of a difference in setup, like we were saying in qualifying, maybe just allowing these guys to play a little game of cat and mouse to kind of see who has got that better car. Of course, Rachinov with the slipstream looking probably going to want to do it into turn 2 if he can, although not a lot of wiggle in there. As we're speaking of wiggle, Matthew Kingston-Lee a little bit sideways through Piratella down the hill to Aqua Minerale, allows Matthias Thornberg to close up a little bit on the back of the big yellow taxi. We see drivers fighting the steering wheel all the time. These cars with not as much downforce as a GT3 car, slightly different tyres, again kind of adding to the mix, making this a very tricky car to kind of learn in an opening race, depending how many pre-qualifying laps you did. I believe Matthew Kingston-Lee had our record last time out for pre-qualifying laps in the Monday server. Tim Ireland providing me with some facts towards the end of the Ginetta broadcast last time out. And now back to the front with Vinci Rachinov still looking to the back of Schumann, looking very close indeed. Carlos Frau still playing it smart, sitting behind at a distance, kind of waiting for one of these two to trip up to each other. Vinci Rachinov again to the outside in turn 2. Can't make it stick, although goes a little bit kind of more to the left to try and maximize the exit out of 3 and into 4, and he looks very close now, pulling out alongside down into the Villeneuve chicane. Has the inside line for the first part, but will be forced to the outside in the second part. Big jump over the curbs, chopped off by Schumann on the entry. Carlos Frau now looking to the outside into the hairpin, of course, racing off with the favoured line through the hairpin, and the battle continues heading up the hill towards turns 8 and 9.
There's a lot of trust involved in stuff like that, especially when you're bouncing over curbs. Your life is literally in somebody else's hands at that point, but raised very well by all involved there. And talk about Frau for a second. They're the caboose on the train. They can't do anything in this fight except lose ration off time. So what they're going to try and do, the only real strategy they have being third in line here, is wait for something to happen between Schumann and Rationov. They get side by side, maybe a gap opens so that they can get a free position as well and continue fighting on. But I agree with what you said earlier, partner. Schumann looks to be the weakest of the three, but not weak enough that the pass is easy in equal machinery. Now, just as I say that, look at this. Frau has a look here. Slowed up a little bit was Rationov. Frau looking down to the inside, doesn't quite have the overlap.
Yeah, very tricky zone to judge heading down into the last corner. Of course, a downhill braking zone. Brake a little bit too late, and you're not stopping for that corner. You're gonna end up in the gravel now, and we see a big gap now opening from Frau to Rationov. But as you say, Jesse, I'd be in the same scenario. You know, as Frau, I would be sat there thinking, you know, get a move on. I'm going to wait for you guys, but if you take much longer, like we saw then, I'm going to be pulling alongside and trying to move on my own on you, Rationov. So get your hammer down and try and get past this 31 of Schumann ahead, and let's get some progress towards the back of Adam Romaniuk, who's kind of been sat in what we like to call the John Dalton zone, where he's not fazed by the guys ahead, not fazed by the guys behind. He's just kind of meandering about in his own little pace, having the time of his life. Shameless plug, Ryan Gill says.
I absolutely loved it. The first time I ever heard of that particular saying, I had just joined your stream, John. Oriosh on Twitch, by the way. I just joined your stream.
Shameless plug, Jesse Lee.
You said, hello, Jesse. Welcome to the John Dalton Zone. And I had no idea what you were on about, but you find pockets of space. That is your strength. We've got a couple of weaknesses to give you, though, and these are the stewarding reports for the race thus far. Racing incident between the 197 and the 23. I think that explains why the 193 went backwards at the start. Warning for car 23 for not leaving enough space to the 182. No position changed, however. 15-second penalty for car 20 for a takeout. Position returned. That on lap 1, turn 14. Warning for car 77 for an overtake from distance with a slight contact, otherwise known as a send. 5-second penalty for car 699. Forceful overtake with contact, that on turn 19, lap 1. Warning for car 23, hitting car 17 to the rear, avoidable contact, lap 1, turn 6. Racing incident between the 256 and the 69. Drive-through penalty for car 699. Takeout, position not returned. That was versus car 22 on lap 2, turn 3. And just now, racing incident involving car 77.
It's a relatively clean-ish kind of start that we thought up here in the comms box, but obviously Stewart's seeing that a little bit more than what we did. The 699, of course, has retired, which is why we're not seeing the drive-through penalty on the left-hand side of the board. And something a little bit different that regular viewers might know. Normally we have a pro and a silver class. Tonight we do not. Everybody is denoted as a pro, which is why we have such generous scoring here tonight with the top 30 positions scoring points. So with 27 cars still circulating, Jesse Lee, everybody is going to score some kind of point tonight, which of course will help them with their championship fight. And Rationov now taking loads of exit curb in the first part of Ackerman and Raleigh. Big mistake all over the exit curb heading up the hill, and this of course allows Carlos Frau alongside and ahead before they even get to the chicane here at the top of the hill. Way clear for Carlos, and now he can begin the charge up to the back of Benjamin Schumann to maybe attempt the thing that Rationov could not make, and that is a move on the 31 car for P4.
that is going to frustrate Rachanov absolutely, because they were right on the back of Schumann for about 5 laps. Couldn't get it done. They make one mistake in Upper Minerale, and then it's all over. Frau gets through. We talked about the potential of, hanging back, but also that wasn't to say that you're just going to let whatever happens happen in front of you. If the opportunity is presented, you're going to take it. Nico Kumpo trying to do the exact thing to Joe Dauber here. Remember, Dauber was backwards earlier on in this race, so they're fighting it out for 22nd place. It looks like they might have Tom Shipston joining them in that fight. A lot of 3-car breakaways. You see that here at Imola for some reason. It doesn't really seem to matter what series you're in.
Yeah, we saw a lot of these kind of breakaway sections, if you like, in the Ginetta Cup. We used to have packs, 4, 5, 6 deep sometimes. Maybe not so much here with the Lamborghini being a slightly faster, heavier, less kind of agile car. It's harder to put in positions where, you can get that advantage over the train ahead of you. So, like you say, Jesse, you end up with these kind of 3-pack battles. We've got one here. We've got one towards the front of the field, of course, with Schumann, Frau, Rachanov, and anybody else in between that we can see on the circuit radar. Everybody's still relatively bunched up quite close. We knew it was going to be a close field, top 15 I think it was in qualifying, separated by less than a second. So everybody fighting for every inch of tarmac that they can get. And a quick rundown of the events this week here at RCI. We paced ourselves fairly steadily coming into 2023 with our next championship being on a Wednesday, where the rookies will find themselves with Season 3. Their round 1 begins at Paul Ricard. Thursday we have a little bit of a break again, so nice and easy into 2023. And then we're back on Friday for the beginning of our GT Sprint Challenge. Season 9. 9 seasons of GT3s on Friday. We've got round 1 commencing at the Temple of Speed, where we're heading next week, also known as Monza, with some big names already pre-qualified, such as Hugo Merles and Samir Foch, with hopefully a few more drivers to sign up to fill the grid out. And Saturday, it's finally here, the finale of the Endurance World Challenge, where we head to Indianapolis for 12 hours of awesome endurance action. The Rolling Goat lead just 1 point from the Alpine in GT3 Pro, with Sim Brothers leading Cracked Racing in silver for split 1. And this fight is getting very, very close indeed, Jesse. Just looking away from my notes, but Carlos Frau still putting up a great fight on Rachanov, running a little bit wide, opens the door to Rachanov. A little bit of a better drive out of the hairpin, but I think Frau has just about got him up into turn 8 towards the top of the hill. And lastly, pre-qualifying last night began for the RCI 6-hour Challenge Esports Series. We've got 5 rounds, 50 teams, limited tyre sets, custom BOP, and a targeted €8,000 prize pool at a minimum. The series aims to showcase the absolute best of what sim racing has to offer on Assetto Corsa Competizione. And alongside the Esports Series, we also have a free event running on Saturdays with no entry fees and no prize pool, with pre-qualifying also open for that one now. So grab all your friends and get signed up, pick a car and enjoy yourselves 5 rounds of exciting endurance racing. And you can of course sign up and pre-qualify for any of these events at any time by heading over to racerci.com.
€8,000 prize pool.
8,000, Jesse, you heard that.
RCI's first foray into esports event, and keep in mind, as you said, John, that is €8,000 minimum prize pool. That is the least amount. It could grow higher in the future before the series even starts. Incredible stuff. RCI's first foray into the esports sphere. A lot of big name teams have already signed up, and some more have even pledged that they will sign up as well. And like you said, we are never going away from what RCI is. Obviously we do the esports series, but there's also still the parallel series that runs to that. That is normal. It's a community driven series as well, if that's more your speed. So all that running in conjunction with itself, 2023 is going to be a great year. There's some other stuff too that post race today I will talk to you about as well. Exciting things going on. Like Dalton said, racerci.com. Join the Discord as well to stay in the loop. And, well, as for today, less than 30 minutes left to go. Verstappen did carve out just about a 1 second lead on Jimenez, but now that gap has come down a little bit, 2.5 tenths closer than it was a lap ago. The 122 is Jimenez closing back in. The 29 is steadily 2.9 off in no man's land, the John Dalton zone, if you will. In third place, the real battle is right here. Schumann continuing to try and fend off Frau and Rachinov. They've been very nice to each other thus far. Will it stay that way?
It has been relatively clean, I would say. Expecting kind of more elbows out, if you like to say. You know, a few more sends, as it were. A little bit more, maybe bump drafting people, if we can get that close. But all the meanwhile, this fight with Schumann, Frau and Rachinov has allowed Chris Downing and Andy Boardman, I don't know if you saw in the last shot, Jesse, coming down to start straight, they are creeping into the background as Schumann there, big moment in the Villeneuve chicanes, allowed Carlos Frau straight up the inside and has allowed Rachinov round to the outside into the hairpin. Schumann still with the inside line around turn 7, not enough still to get past Schumann, but they are just about side by side, heading up the hill into turn 8, and Rachinov slots in behind, tries to dart to the inside, nearly runs himself off the road over the curb, big bumps, nearly used to track limits, and look in the background, Chris Downing and Andy Boardman are now about to join this train.
This is the worst feeling ever for Vinci. Vinci knows that they had the speed to take 4th place away earlier on. They made that one mistake of their own that allowed Frau to get by. Schumann then makes a mistake that Rachinov was waiting for Schumann to make, but Frau was in the 2nd place in that fight and is able to capitalize on that. And now, to further frustrate the driver, Rachinov wasn't able to capitalize himself to get by Schumann, because certainly Rachinov feels like they're quicker than Frau at this point by the fact that they were able to put the pressure on them. So now the frustration starts to set in. Also, you look in the virtual rear mirror and you see Downing, you see Boardman, and it just gets more frustrating for you. Chris Downing looks like they have a little bit of damage on the back of their wing. It's a little bit dirty on the top. That's indicative of some kind of rear impact. The front of Boardman's car is clean, so I suspect it wasn't contact between these two that caused that, as Boardman tries to go the long way around the outside of the Tamburello. Will he do it? I think he might just be side by side as they come through there. The next corner will be up here at Villeneuve, down the inside position. No, they get single file before then, and that was very close as Downing just stays in front.
Yeah, super dicey there. A little bit of a barge going into turn 2 from Downing on Boardman, covering off the outside there into the hairpin of turn 7. But very well done to both drivers, sticking it side by side through turns 2, 3 and 4. Very great on both drivers' part there. You know, a couple of drivers you can set your kind of watch to on you know, who you can go side by side with. You have a lot of confidence between yourself and certain drivers. I know from the fact of endurance racing, you know, a lot of these names in this field very clean and fair when it comes to racing. You know, they give as good as they get, really. So Andy Boardman might be a little bit fired up after that rub on Chris Downing into turns 2 and 3 and 4. But we do have a few more Stewart updates coming across from the box. We have an incident on lap 9, turn 5, involving the 22 and the 182 for a racing incident minor contact. We have an incident on lap 11, turn 5, involving the 34 and the 197. No further action. The 197 in too deep. I think that was a famous Sum 41 song. Incident on lap 3, turn 15, involving the 25 and the 917 racing incident. The 25 doesn't have enough time to avoid the car slowing in front. Incident lap 9, turns 4 and 5, I believe that is, involving the 77, the 256 and the 917. We have a warning for the 256. The 256 does not hold the brakes after spinning, and after spinning, contact with the 917 was unavoidable. Incident on lap 3, turn 15, involving the 777 and the 917. We have a drive-through for the 917. The 917 taps the 777 into a spin for a takeout. We then have 3 more racing incidents between, we have lap 12, turn 3, involving the 197 and the 34. Lap 12, turn 4, involving the 197 and the 30. And then lap 11 is 16 and 17, involving the lap 11 S16/17, involving the 30. Did the 30 have his own racing incident minor contact, or has that been miswritten down, Jesse? The very last point on our sheet.
I think that happened in between two different turns is what they're trying to say. It happened on a straight, which is highly irregular, but I believe that is what that's meant to indicate.
It only has one car number, though. Is it the 197 again?
Oh, potentially so.
I would say so. Either way, another one has just come in. Lap 1, turn 6, involving the 17 and the 23. Warning for the car 23. The 23 hits the 17 in the rear. Avoidable contact, second warning, 5-second penalty. And I believe we have seen a drive-through come through for Sebastian Erdmann, who earlier on in the Lamborghini Split 1 chat told us that he broke 3 fingers at work today.
Oh my goodness.
That's more than half a hand, Jesse.
I don't need to check your math on that, John. I know you're correct. Oh, there's been more drama here with the 777 of Dauber. Well, this seems to have happened. This is back at Upper Minerale, but we know whatever dramas have befallen the 777 happened into the chicane. Was this another rear-end incident? It certainly looks like it. Nope, no rear end there. Oh no, and it's a carbon copy of what happened earlier to the 777. It's deja vu nightmare for Joe Dauber.
It's literally copy and paste. Same corner, same style. Didn't carry much speed. Nika Kumpu, apparently being told, was the other car involved down in P26. We see Erdmann there with the stop go 30. Fukushio with 15 seconds. We have Marquez with 15 seconds and Chris Downing with 5. So plenty of pre-race penalties to be handed out. So Chris Downing is going to want to be getting a move on up the road from Ethan Scott if he can. So when that 5 seconds does hit, that of course does not be used in many positions. And the most confusing thing is we have 3 Lion cars here tonight, which has completely thrown me. Normally we only ever see 2 cars with the same livery, and now we have 3, which is why I'm getting very confused at who is who.
Yeah, they're well represented through the field, admittedly, the Temporal Name Motorsport team. And I got thrown about that earlier as well, and then I saw one running in 20-something. I was like, oh no, what happened to them? And I realized, nope, there's just 3 of them in the race. Can't bamboozle us in the box today. I think we've got that covered. Ted Edwards asked for a race recap, came in early. Well, here you go. Christoph Verstappen sat on the pole position just by a small margin near the end of qualifying. It was a hotly contested qualifying. They out-qualified Jose Jimenez by just about a tenth, maybe a little bit less. And also you had the 29 of Romanuk behind them, very close in quarters as well. Sherman, Rachanov, and then Frau was the next couple. And, well, we didn't have a big crash on the very beginning of the race. It was very nicely done. The most contact we've seen today has happened in the chicane, and rather unfortunately, most of that contact was against Joe Dauber to this point. The 777 having a horrible affair. Not any of his making, of course. Beyond that, of course, it has been very close for 4th place. Schumann had that position. Rachanov took it. Schumann took it back. Frau got by Rachanov, and then Schumann made a mistake in Villeneuve that let Frau by into 4th. Rachanov continues to be frustrated behind Schumann's car. We suspect Rachanov has a little bit more pace, but it hasn't really amounted to much, because he's not been able to make the pass. Excellent defensive driving by Schumann, it must be said, but now Boardman and Downing has actually fallen off the back of this group, but Boardman has come into the fray as well. Other than that, just minor contacts throughout the field, and that is your race recap.
Certainly. It's almost like we need a little sponsor segment there for a Jesse Lee race recap, sorry. Maybe sponsored by like KFC Zinger, like V8 Supercars used to do back in the day. But Rachanov definitely, you can see he's overdriving the car now. You saw out of Aquaman Morale there, big slide behind Benjamin Schumann, definitely trying to extract way more out of the Pirellis than that they can give. And of course, this does allow Andy Boardman up to the back of him. So in the next 10 minutes or so, I'd say Boardman is going to be well in the firing line for this fight as well, especially if Schumann's car begins to drop off and slow up this kind of small train. Might even bring Downing back into it. Of course, just a little bit down the road, just over a second behind Boardman, I believe. Yeah, 1.3 seconds to the good as of the last sector. And You said not many penalties, Jesse. Recently come in, we have our first disqualification of 2023. The 182 has been disqualified from the race for reaching exceeding the single event license point limit of 6. Finds himself back in the pit lane. Unfortunately, the nail in the coffin seemed to be incident lap 4, turn 12, involving the 60, the 182, and the 20. We had a stop-go 10 for the 182. The 182 takes out the 60, then hits the brakes too hard and stops at the apex of the corner, giving the 20 no time to react and losing positions. The 182 then hits its license point limit. Then we find an incident in lap 4, turn 12, involving the 182 exceeding the limit again on that note. Incident on lap 12, turn 6, involving the 30 and the 25, a drive-through for the 25. The 25 takes out the 30, position not returned, so in case it does happen to you guys in an RCI event, remember to always return those positions, and the stewards might look a little bit more favourably upon you for good sportsmanship behaviour. Incident lap 13, turn 19, involving the 777 and the 256, racing incident minor contact. That was a kink in the straight that we're seeing now, so how we're hitting minor contacts there is beyond me, but the stewards found something we didn't. Incident lap 15, turn 5, involving the 69 and the 23, with a racing incident. Big move from Rachenov there on the outside of Schumann, all over the grass, and this allows Boardman collision through the first chicane. Boardman to the grass, and the gravel comes back on, nearly collecting Chris Downing in the efforts there as well. Absolute madness there. Hoping we can get a replay from that one, Ryan Gill, in the cameras box if you've got anything to record. I'd love to see that one again from another angle. Take it away, Jesse.
This is incredible. This was the run he was looking off. That's Schumann in front and Rachenov in the white car there, going completely off into the grass and gets back onto the racetrack. We'll have dirty tires here, but that's not what dooms him. It's going over those huge paquette curbs, crashing right into Boardman, and here comes the car behind them, and they all get jumbled up there as Schumann again escapes. Rachenov further frustrated, and I can only assume that is going to catch the ire of the stewards, John.
Has Kevin Estra signed up under Vinci Rachenov's RCI account for this race?
Oh my goodness! For Vinci, if you're watching this back on repeat, John Dalton drives a 1998 green Metro Geo Metro. I did not say that.
Some very Kevin Estra moves coming out of Vinci Rachenov. We saw him earlier do the same thing at the top of the hill in turn 8. He kind of darted out the slipstream, and I don't think he's quite grasped on kind of how much movement this car has under small steering inputs, and he nearly fired himself off the grass coming into turn 9. Managed to save it, but yeah, definitely didn't manage to hold it into turn 2 there. But fantastic driving from both of all parties involved to come out of there all facing the right way, all 4 of them to be fair. And meanwhile, Christopher Straper finds himself still under fire from Jose Jimenez, still not managed to shake the pink XBD Lamborghini. The 122 of Jose Jimenez now as they come up the hill, still 0.335 seconds separate them. And there's no pit stop to determine this one, Jesse. Normally we say these races are won or lost on pit lane, and this is going to have to be won or lost on the track.
Do you know what I've been thinking about this entire time? You mentioned something I was unaware. I was unaware that refueling was disallowed, meaning you couldn't actually do it if you wanted to. I can't think of a single other series that RCI has ever done where it had been banned, refueling. It's always been there if you needed it, I thought, but it's straight up you're not allowed to do it, so you had to take your however much fuel you reckon you needed to make it to the end of this race in one go. And I think that's a very interesting new caveat here. And of course, the reason I bring all that up is depending on your driving style and your tire pressure and your fuel load, which equals weight, determines how good your car is going to drive in this final 13 minutes. Jimenez hung around a second behind Verstappen this entire race, got close early, backed off. Could have been error wash, to be fair, that made him back off a little bit. But now right back in the throes of it. Oh, has a little bit of a look there. Decides to fall back in line. Better to not lose time. And will we see a move? Oh my goodness, a little bit sideways from Verstappen. Are the tires going off of our leader's car?
going to be interesting to see how these cars do end up at the end of the race. We saw Schumann and Rachinov sliding their cars about not 5-6 minutes ago, so they've gone a little bit too hard on their tyres. Of course, temperature's very hot today, 25 air and 33 on the tarmac, so Pirelli's going to be screaming out in these high load corners. Top of the hill, turn 9, you've got Ackerman and Arale again, very fast corner, like you say, Jesse. It's going to be all about how you've kind of set your car up. Have you put enough fuel in it? Are you running too much fuel? You're heavier than your opponent, and that's where they're suddenly finding this time on you. Are they lighter than you? Are they even going to make it to the end? You have to consider so many factors at hand. How much have you been warming up the tyres in the formation lap? Have you been brake dragging more, thus using more fuel? There's just too many things at hand. So interesting to see. I think Tim, our league admin, has told us that he was watching too much IMSA at one point, and I believe refueling was banned in the IMSA Lamborghini series. So
there is absolutely no such thing as too much IMSA. Exciting every weekend they're on the racetrack. I refuse to believe that, but I do love that idea, taking something from the real world and imparting that here. It makes drivers think. Believe it or not, as a driver, you relish that challenge a lot of the time of, is there a way I can weaponize my fuel, all right, that I have by taking a few liters less, being a little bit lighter, and might that help me in the end? All of those little things drivers love to do. A couple of cars getting side by side. Andy Boardman now finds himself right in front of another car, and I suspect that is exactly what happened there. The 23 goes off of the track a little bit. Downing's going to end up behind him. A little argy-bargy coming through. How will the stewards view that rejoin by the 23?
Yeah, so Downing definitely ran himself wide in 17, and Boardman saw the chance in 18, took it, and Downing didn't really want to give up that position. I mean, 5 seconds to the good. He's not even going to have to pass Andy Boardman. He's then going to have to drag out 6 seconds for a safe margin in the next 11 minutes or so. So I mean, if you're Downing, you kind of want to just surely minimise your damage loss from the said penalty that's been handed out of 5 seconds. Looking down the grid. Go on.
Did we see Rachinov pass Schumann at some point?
No, I'm going with. I don't remember this happening.
But it's definitely happened. Rachinov now
definitely
more than a second in front of Schumann.
Well spotted.
Fifth place to Vinci Rachinov, who is 7 seconds behind Frau, but gained several tenths on that particular sector alone. Rachinov catching Frau. Of course, we don't know if the stewards are going to impart any penalty on the 24 for their Dukes of Hazzard moment, I think is what we'll call it.
We'll have to keep our eyes peeled in the stewards board and see if anything does come through from the stewards, of course, toiling away in the room next door, casting their eagle eye over everything happening in the Split 1 race. Of course, the majority of Split 1 events are live stewarded here at RCI as well as casted on our YouTube channel, with the exception of the rookies on Wednesday. I believe that's the only one we're not casting, although we do have the GT3 Championship kicking off on Friday. So again, keep your eyes peeled on the YouTube channel. Remember to...
I know the two lads casting that on Friday. Matter of fact, I know the broadcaster too.
Do you? And who might that be on Friday?
I think it might be John Dalton, Jesse Lee, and Ryan Gill.
Is it?
It might be us. We might be those guys.
Is it a copy and paste of Monday?
I think it is.
Ryan Gill does have to travel with us. That's the only downside, Jesse.
Gill has requested a single room. That's fine. We'll take John and I will take the double bed. That's fine.
Top and tail, Jesse Lee. Top and tail.
Final 10 minutes of the race here today. We got a car off in the grass, but we got a hot battle for the lead here. The 2 and the 122 fighting it out. There's a battle for just about 5th or 6th place going on. We suspect penalties might be inbound for some of those drivers. It's been a fraught undertaking for several cars that have been able or not been able to stay out of the steward's eyesight. Nico Kumper, of course, got a further penalty for taking out Joe Dauber's 777 in the chicane. Dauber joined us in chat and said that he thought it was his fault. Little too wing, too low, just causing an obstruction in the chicane clearly. I don't think Dauber can take that on himself. No matter how slow you are, it is everyone's responsibility to not run in the back of somebody, in my opinion.
I mean, it does take two to tango, Jesse Lee, and there are two parties in every accident normally. And like you say, it is, you know, up to both drivers. Not everybody is on the same fuel load. Not everybody is on the same car setup, as much as we'd like to see it. And of course, you will get cars that are faster in a straight line. You will get cars that are slower in a straight line, and the same in the corners as well. So if you're suddenly thinking this Lamborghini is getting larger and larger as you drive into a chicane, maybe slow down a little bit more than you thought you might need to. And of course, avoid ruining other people's races. However, we digress. That's what stewards are here for, to make their decision. And of course, we have Christoph Verstappen leading the way. Fastest lap of the race still in his hands, and Jose Jimenez has found himself a second to the good now, Jesse. So we saw the 0.3 gap, we now see the 1 second gap. Has Jimenez hit the kind of ideal window of his car, and he's now just not made it stick? So he's just maybe playing it a bit safe. We see him drop another 0.3 in the middle sector there, down to 1.3 seconds now, the gap.
I wonder if this could be fuel related, John. I wonder if maybe Verstappen was saving a little bit and Jimenez was on it, and now the roles have reversed a little bit, or maybe Verstappen was saving the entire time, which might have been what was keeping it relatively close, and now realizes they have more than enough fuel to finish the race. It could be either of those, could be neither of them, as far as we're concerned. We do know what happened between the 24 and the 96. Rachinov, the 24, given a 5-second penalty for forcing a car off the track, is what that was deemed as. Honestly, I think that's as far as the stewards needed to go there, so I applaud that effort.
Yeah, certainly so. It's not easy to call, you know, people that have been fighting the whole race, and it comes down to, you know, a steward's decision. It's not always, you know, the ideal thing that we want to see as, you know, broadcasters, spectators, drivers, you know, whatever your hand may be in the sim racing world. We do like to see things, you know, settled fairly and squarely, should we say, on the track between two drivers that, you know, give each other the utmost respect. And of course, we are all humans, so we all sometimes do make mistakes, but it is, of course, Jesse Lee, how we learn from those mistakes. And hopefully a lot of people today will learn something about the Lamborghini that they never once knew. I personally have not driven this car a lot. I might jump in and drive some laps before next broadcast, so I know how these drivers are feeling. I mean, normally GT3, GT4, Cup cars, I've driven the majority of them, but this one just hasn't had my love, should we say.
Well then, I will say you're right about that. Everybody will show up next week with better information. You know, they've been in a live race, they know what to expect, and yes, it's going to be a different track, and it's Monza, right? So it is completely different, but you will have more data on what you can and can't do, what will and will not work, and you don't really get that. You can practice all you want, but until you're in an actual race where it matters against quality opponents like this, you don't really get a sense of what you could do better, or what could have been done better in a setup, or what you shouldn't be doing. And I think everybody learns from that, and I think today is certainly the day where everybody will leave here richer in a knowledge sense than when they came in. By the way, you may be wondering why Kumpu has 20 seconds of penalties. Well, they got a warning for forcing the 777 wide, but they returned the position. That was on lap 13. That was his second warning, which was upgraded to a 5-second penalty. That we told you about the 15-second penalty for the chicane takeout of the 777. That's why they have 20 seconds. There was a 5-second penalty for the 24 for pushing the 96 off track. We told you about that. A racing incident between the 96 and the 23. A racing incident between the 23 and the 96. And also a warning for car 31 for going slow and then pulling alongside. That was versus the 24 car. A racing incident between the 122 and the 2, and that is everything up to date as far as we know.
As far as we know, Ryan Gilles just said in our ears that Jimenez is beginning to close in again, down to 0.875 last time by on the sector split.
What do you think's happening here, John, between those two?
I think maybe Verstappen is kind of focusing, realizing he's got a gap, maybe unfocusing a little bit, and then Jimenez is doing the kind of opposite. He's kind of like charging up to the back of him, maybe losing concentration, focusing on the back of Verstappen's car too much, losing ground, and then when he has that kind of clear window of air again, lots of, you know, aero grip, should we say, he's, managing to close that gap again. So it's a little bit of a game of cat and mouse. Drivers' focus levels vary. I mean, 50 minutes for these guys, I will admit, is probably a sprint. I've seen Verstappen churn out double stints in endurance racing before. So, I mean, 2 hours 10 is, quite a long period of time. 50 minutes in comparison is quite a short period of time. So some of these drivers might be a little bit relaxing, a little bit switched off, thinking, there's only 5 minutes to go, there's only 8 minutes to go or so. And they just start hemorrhaging time, and then they realise, they think, best get the hammer down again and try and stretch this gap a bit more. Across the line again, 0.726. So it's coming down very, very slowly, Jesse Lee.
I can tell you too, John, I'm sure you experience this as well. Whenever you participate in races of different length, it messes with you. If you're used to doing 60 minutes and it's not 60 plus 1 lap, it's just 60 minutes and first across the stripe wins it, and you add 5 minutes to that, as crazy as that might sound to people that don't race, you notice that extra 5 minutes. And it's the same way on the other end. You race a 50-minute race, or what I'm more accustomed to, racing a 30-minute sprint race, it feels like the race is over in 5 minutes, even though it's 30. The change of time perception in the cockpit of a race car, you feel it. And if you're racing, a 24-hour race and you're used to racing 3 or 4 hour races, it feels to you as a driver, your drive time, if it's going well, it goes by in a flash, but you look up at the clock and it's barely moved.
Yeah, I had this on my first endurance, first 24 at Kyalami, not last year was Spa, year before. Exactly the same. I'm used to running typically an hour races up to that point. I dabbled in endurance a bit, single stints here and there, constantly hot swapping the seat. But yeah, you look up at the clock and you're like, feels like I've been going for ages. And you're looking like, I'm only 10 minutes into to what is a 24-hour race. And then you just kind of mentally like, I don't know what the word is, but you kind of screw yourself over by staring at the clock more than kind of where you're going. And then that's where you start hemorrhaging time. Jimenez down to now 0.595, so 0.449 across the line, actually, Jesse, and I stand corrected. It is coming down. Just over 1 minute to go, so this will be the final lap the leaders take. So we will see, can Jimenez hold out? Can he get anywhere close to the back of Christoph Verstrappen's number 2 Lamborghini? The gap looks quite large coming up the hill. It's a big ask in half a lap, Jesse Lee. Do you reckon he can do it?
I think he's going to have a shot here, but he's got to stay in close contact, a little bit wide there in Piratella as they come down at Acqua Minerale for the final time. This should be the last lap of the race. He's got to claw some of this back, does Jose. He can't afford to lose anything. Maybe force Verstappen into a little bit of a mistake, get a little bit closer. He is going to have that massive toe down the front straight, but of course it's all about staying close here. Both cars heavily over the curb. Oh, and it's a big mistake. It's a big mistake from Jose Jimenez in the XBD car, and that might just be about it. An extra little bobble over the curb, and you never know. It's going to have to be a clean Ravazza, wiggling under braking into Ravazza, and that might just be about it, as Christoph Verstappen shouldn't be challenged here coming to the line. What an incredible last lap and a last-ditch effort by Jimenez.
Yeah, you can see he was really pedaling the wheels off that 122 XBD Emerald Racing pink car there. Great performance from these two. Christoph Verstrappen, absolutely dominant performance from the green to the checker. Jose Jimenez comes across the line in second, and Adam Romaniuk brings home the John Dalton zone in P3. Not really challenged, a relatively clean race from the number 29. Carlos Fraun P4, Rachinov P5, although with 5 seconds of penalties to be handed out after everybody crosses the line. Schumann in 6th, Andy Boardman in 7th. Ethan Scott comes across the line in P8. Not seeing a lot of him in this race. Chris Downing P9, although with penalties again, I think he might just about hold Jordan Daly to the good. Roskam, then Stevenson, Carlos, our very own staff member here at RCI, along with Les finishing 12th and 13th. Holland 14th, Tornberg 15th, Kingston Lee 16th, Matt Stevens 17th, and then we have Collins in P18 as far as I can see. Nice wiggle there from Jose Jimenez. I think that's the universal racing sign, Jesse Lee, for GG's.
Yeah, that's a good race. Those are two opponents that are probably going to have to do battle this entire season. They're incredibly similar on pace. They fought it out in qualifying. They fought it out on the racetrack. They kept it clean. Jimenez gave it everything. It just turns out it was a little bit too far of a bridge to gap. By the way, I just want to point out, I was giggling about Rachinov. Remember they had that 5-second penalty from the contact earlier? Well, they beat Schumann by, I think, 74/100ths of a second. They had 5 seconds, 74/100ths, and with the 5-second penalty, they get to keep fifth by 74/100ths of a second. That was close. Very close racing indeed. That was an action-packed round number 1 here at Imola. John, what's your takeaways from all this?
I mean, superb racing up and down the field. Not as close as I was kind of expecting to see. I was kind of expecting to see more Ginetta style racing. But I mean, with, the Lamborghini being a bigger, heavier, faster car in general, it was always going to lead to the kind of split pack racing of threes that you mentioned earlier, Jesse, at Imola. But yeah, I mean, up and down the field, great to see these guys adapting to something different. Great to see racing again that is a one-make series, kind of setting the playing field level. It's giving everybody a fair shot at a win, essentially. But Christoph Verstappen, great start, just drove away from Jose Jimenez and Adam Romaniuk. But some big names in the field, some races that haven't gone exactly well. Marquez down in P28 there reached the license point limit. We saw Erdmann with his 3 broken fingers and a stop-go 30, call it a day there. And Fukushio, the last finisher in P24, Joe Dorber caught up in an incident. John Aracer, I think he was tangled in the first chicane, the 699. I remember seeing him stopped, retired the car early. But I mean, everybody that finished up to Fukushio has scored points. So, I mean, it's all to play for.
It really is. 28 cars rather took the green flag. 24 of them will be classified, meaning that they will get points. And of course, next week, John, we move on to Monza, which is a completely different animal in and of itself. Should see a lot of drafting, a lot of pack style racing there.
Yeah, I mean, the famous, straight brake chicane, 2 corners, straight brake, fast chicane, straight brake, bank corner slightly, and then back into the loop again. So, I mean, it's going to be, passes are plenty. It's going to be a lot of slipstreaming, a lot of, slingshots. Whether or not we'll see any bump drafting in these cars would be amusing to kind of see. Big old Lamborghinis kind of pushing each other along. But yeah, I mean, Templar Speed, Monza, great passing opportunities everywhere, kind of old school circuit. It lends itself quite well. But same as Imola, Jesse. Pinch point of turn 1. They made it clean race 1, but will they be as generous in race 2?
That is the question. Well, we look forward to next week here on Monday. We look forward to this Friday for the first Friday GT Sprint Championship of the year. Season 9 comes at you this Friday. The box will be unchanged. It'll be us 3 with you on that. We're also in the country of Italy for that round as well. GT3s on the track. 1 hour of racing. Can't wait to get that started, of course. And we've just got so many events coming up. Dalton told you about the Wednesday Championship that you can sign up for. We've got other different races coming up. We talked about the esports event. At minimum, €8,000 in prize pool for that. And we have a lot of big name signups for that series. Still time to get involved with that esports 6-hour challenge esports series. We'd love to have your team. And of course, if that's not your speed and style, we still have these 6-hour free events as well for the community. On top of that, iRacing makes a return in 2023. More information about that and how you can get involved with RCI iRacing by joining our Discord, including iRacing trial codes that are available on our Discord as well. If you're new to iRacing and want to get involved, come to the Discord and fill out the form, and we'll see if we can't help you out with 3 free months of iRacing. We'd love to see you in those series as well. And as always, racerci.com to stay up to date with all the series we got coming up. My goodness, just so much going on around here, John.
Yeah, busy old time, 2023 RCI. So it's great to see, iRacing making an appearance. Like Jesse says, if you're new to iRacing, such as I am, maybe we might see you over there as well. Maybe we might be casting an event or two next year, or this year, should I say now? Because we are, of course, 2023 January.
I was wondering which one of us was going to do that first.
Yeah, it's me. It's always going to be me. I'm the problem. But of course, going into 2023, of course, our partners, as always, to support us, we have AK Informatica for providing our server solutions here at RCI. However, they also do provide high-end hardware, peripherals, and accessories, including sim gear. So if you are in their target market, then be sure to head over to their website and see what you can pick up. We, of course, have driver61.com, where through RCI, you can get 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code in the description below. And of course, if you need some tips on iRacing, it might be one for you. And lastly, but not least, Fanatec, your one-stop shop for the best sim racing equipment on the market. And you can, of course, use our affiliate link in the description below. And it won't cost you a single penny, but it does help us a little bit here with the running costs at RCI. And, of course, down below, you can find all our social media, including, obviously, Discord, like Jesse says, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And, of course, remember to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon so you know when we're next going live with a broadcast. Which, like Jesse say, will be on Friday, where we take a short hop across Italy to Monza, the Temple of Speed, for some GT3 action. We have some big names already signed up, and hopefully I'm going to see some even bigger names on that board by the time Friday rolls about. Of course, head over to racerci.com, where you can, of course, pre-qualify at any time, day or night, whenever takes your fancy, and lodge your time on the board. And yeah, I think from Imola, that kind of wraps us all up. So I hope you've enjoyed tonight. I know I have. It's been a bit weird trying to get back into the flow of things, but I think I've found the feet. And Friday, hopefully, I've still got the feet. And alongside me, Jesse Lee and Ryan Gill, and of course, all of our live stewards in the box tonight. We bid you farewell, and we will hopefully see you back here on RCI TV on Friday. Take care.